very rich in the United States become richer. Enshrining and preaching social equality, the country sees a huge gap between the rich and the poor. An article in The Guardian says in the year 2022, 3 multi-billionaires own more wealth than the bottom half of American society, 160 million Americans, and the gap is ever widening.
Economic equality, whether measured through the gaps in income or wealth between richer and poorer households, continues to unfortunately widen.
Statistics shows that 45% of all new income goes to the top 1%. Meanwhile, working families are trapped in poverty, becoming a permanent underclass of the country. Over the last 50 years, the poverty rate in the United States has barely budged. Around 11% of the US population was considered poor in 2019 compared to 12% in 1970. The New York Times says while US residents' savings have run down, necessities like car repair, food, and housing become sharply more expensive. That means many poor Americans are struggling with basic human rights to housing, healthcare, education, and even life and survival.
If you live in a poor neighborhood, your education is not as good as if you live in a rich neighborhood just because of the way the education system is funded. So that also makes it more difficult for students or when they graduate to have access to higher education, good jobs.
The human rights situation of the poor in the world's most powerful country has drawn criticism from the world.
In the economic front, many Americans are economically struggling. In terms of distribution of wealth, I think it's very apparent that in American society, the gap is really widening.
In fact, the poor people in America are worse off than the poor people in many third world countries.
In the United States, the racial wealth gap has been persistent and extreme. A recent long-term study co-released by researchers from Princeton University and the University of Bonn found that the racial wealth gap is the largest of the economic disparities between black and white Americans, with a white to black per capita wealth ratio of 6:1.
I think to inequality, because the non-whites have less. They have less opportunity in terms of economic opportunities like to jobs, education, and all of this, even social and basic services that's supposed to be is afforded to all nationals or to all citizens of America. But because of their racial ethnicity, they are not being provided in terms of being equal to the white or to the American whites.
The American dream, which tells that everyone is blessed with the opportunity for individual prosperity and success regardless of social class, has become a daydream for many people. According to The Guardian, the federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour has not been raised since 2009 and has lost over 27% of its purchasing power since 14 years ago. Why has the minimum wage not risen for more than a decade when 1% of the population enjoys increasingly huge wealth? Here are some opinions.
The Western mold of democracy has brought capitalism. What you can say is toxic capitalism, where only a few people are able to have the largest share of the economy.
Because we know the system of capitalism, monopoly capitalism, which is also the system of imperialism, doesn't operate according to human logic. The system of imperialism operates according to the logic of maximum profit. And the suffering of humanity and the despoliation of the planet is of secondary or even minimal or even no importance when it comes to that logic.
And the nature of capitalism is that the more you have, the more you get.